Okay. All right, and we are live. I want to welcome everybody to episode 315 of the Polite Society podcast. We're going to be recording in just a minute. We're going to start off with our interview with Grant Cunningham. Before we get going, though, I want to thank our advertisers, ABN Army Surplus, Concealment Solutions, Crusader Weaponry, New Jersey Second Amendment Society, and Firearm Safety Institute, and, of course, our title sponsor, the Firearms Policy Coalition. Because we have actually a couple interviews today. We're going to start off with those, and we'll do the recording of our regular show right after we finish those up. Are we ready to, everybody ready to start off with Grant's interview then?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Before we take off, I want to remind our live viewers that you can ask a question live into the interview. You can use either the Q&A app or you can comment on the YouTube video, and we will have Grant answer your question live on the air. And hopefully, in a week or two, I'll have a way you can call in and talk live. Although I may have to give out my personal cell phone number to do that. We'll see.
Just get a second cell phone.
Get a burner?
Yeah. A cheap one, you know. Add it to your family plan. It costs you $20.
Yeah, I might have to look into that. We'll see. All right, here we go. Coming back in 5. And welcome back to the Polite Society podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. This is our interview segment. First interview we have up today is Grant Cunningham. You've heard Grant here on the air before. He is normally a Grant. Are you a co-host? Are you a? I don't. You're more than a frequent guest over on Doc's show, right?
Yeah, I think Doc calls me a co-host, which means I do everything that Doc does, but I don't get paid. So I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. Doc's gonna really hate to hear that, but it's a good thing we mentioned him. See, Doc, we do mention you now and again.
Yeah, I'm actually hoping to get Doc on the air in the near future. I've been messing with him. Apparently, he misplaced his voice somewhere, and as soon as he's able to find his glasses and find his voice, he's agreed to come on the air.
Maybe,
but we did want.
Maybe he'll have a voice that pronounces the word lever correctly. We can look forward to that.
Now.
Love you, Doc.
Yeah, I love you, Doc. And Doc, it's I want to know how Doc pronounces leverage.
Oh, there's a good question.
It's the same word. You know. Anyway, first question I got for you, Graham. We ran into each other at SHOT Show, and I'm not a huge revolver guy. I pretty much am you could call me a Glock fanboy and not be too inaccurate about it. But one in the revolver area, one interesting pistol I finally got to handle when I was down at SHOT Show was Chiappa Rhino. And I've heard about that one a lot. It's got the barrel at the bottom end of the cylinder rather than the top. Theoretically, it's supposed to greatly reduce muzzle flip and felt recoil. But you being the person who I would consider an expert on firearms, on revolvers, I wanted to know what your impression was of it.
Well, the Rhino is the last design of Emilio Gissoni, who unfortunately died here a number of years ago. And his big thing was always reducing felt recoil in revolvers, and that was his gun of choice. And so he came up with a number of different ways to do that, all of them lowering the bore axis, so that the bore axis, instead of being on top of the hand, the bore axis actually ends up inside the hand someplace. And he did this in a couple of different ways, but the way they ultimately decided on is what he used in the Chiappa Rhino. And that is to fire from the bottom chamber on the cylinder instead of the top chamber like we normally do. And so the barrel is offset downwards by, an inch or so. And what that does is that brings the axis of force, of recoil force, into the hand, and it really does reduce felt recoil and dramatically reduces muzzle flip. It's very, and we're talking a fairly lightweight gun. This is a gun that's made out of aluminum, but shooting .357s in it, they feel like .38 specials. And that's not an exaggeration. It does work. The concept is good. Giussoni was a very gifted designer. The issue with the iteration that Chiappa did is primarily technical in nature, and they've had some issues with the lock work. They've had some issues with excessive trigger weight on that lock work, and in an effort to reduce that, they've reduced spring rates. And if my mailbox is any indication, they've had significant problems with ignition reliability as a result. It's a very, very complicated lock work because of what they had to do to route force from the trigger to the hammer. And there are lots of points of friction. There are lots of cams in this thing, lots of little moving levers, lots of stuff going on. And as a result, it has had some teething problems. The concept is good. Execution, I think, probably still needs some work.
So how does it feel when you say it's a work in progress? And to its credit, it doesn't have. It has some new problems to solve. It doesn't have 100 years of industrial practice to stand on. What's it feel like when you pick it up?
Because of some design choices they've made, it feels very much like an auto-loading pistol when you pick it up. The grip is very squared off, as opposed to most revolvers where it's very rounded. The cylinder, of course, has flattened sides, so it kind of looks a little bit from the shooter's perspective like an autoloader instead of a revolver. And it is relatively light for a size. Now, this is a fairly good-sized gun. This is not the size of a J-frame. It's fairly good-sized, and it's still very light because of the use of aluminum. So when you pick it up, it feels like an autoloader. One of the things that I do when I teach people how to grasp a revolver, I teach them to grasp it differently than I do an autoloader. And that's due to the mechanics of the way the two platforms work. And with the Rhino, when I grab it out of a holster, it feels like an autoloader to me. And I end up with a thumbs forward autoloader grip, which is a real problem on that gun because that means your forward thumb ends up right next to the cylinder gap. You'll only do that once. Trust me, but it does. It feels like an autoloader when you pick it up. It's really kind of odd in that regard.
And is that just the way they happen to mold the grip, or is that inherent in the design?
It's inherent in the design. The grip, of course, is squared off, and they could choose to do something different with that. But because of the contours of the frame and the way that it all goes together, there's also a tang at the top that revolvers don't have, but autoloaders do. So it's a little of both. They could choose to round off that grip more, but you'd still end up with that tang at the top. And if you're used to coming down on a holster and indexing on that tang, it feels like an autoloader. It really does, and there's no way around it.
You're saying that tang has to be there?
Yeah, because of the way that they built the frame and built the lockwork and everything, it's there. Now, if they wanted to redesign certain things internally, I think they could get rid of it. But there's no real need to get rid of it. It doesn't really cause any major structural issues.
Now, Grant, you have an unusual background, from jewelry to precision, almost watchworks, and here you are. The reason you're talking to us is you and I deal with pieces of precision equipment that we put right next to an explosion thousands of times. Yes. That's kind of a French fried ice cube. I mean, how do we make something perfectly smooth and beat it to death?
You know, when you come down to it, and I started out, I was the youngest licensed watch and clock maker in my state. I was 13 years old at the time. And by the way, Bill Wilson, you might have heard of him. He owns this little company called Wilson. Yeah. Hi, Bill.
That other little company?
Yeah, he started off as a watchmaker too. So there are more than a few of us, and I know of a couple of others. But a firearm is really a very, very cool thing because it is probably the ultimate in terms of durable consumer appliances. I mean, think about it. how many things do we have? I'm looking around the room. How many things do I have that are still as usable today as they were 100 years ago?
Right.
I can't really think of anything except firearms.
The cutlery in our drawer and the firearms in our safe. That's about it.
Yeah, and maybe a Martin guitar. Maybe.
There you go.
But yeah, things have undergone tremendous changes. I was in college. I had a minor in music, and I'm a trumpet player. I'm a brass player, and even the trumpets that we had 100 years ago were vastly different than the ones today. And I can't think of any that were made that long ago that are still really actually playable. So they are really when you look at it. I mean, we look at them and we think, okay, it's a gun. We go out and go pew pew pew, right? But when you start to think about it. You're right. These things have contained, thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of explosions over their lifetime, and the damn things still work. That's astonishing to me.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, particularly for a revolver.
Well,
you don't end up with, this is at the moment of release, and therefore parts get hammered together and surfaces abrade and spall, and no. It's all got to be well enough manufactured. That doesn't happen the first time or the 10,000th.
Exactly.
In fact, they get better with use, right?
Yeah. In general, they do, and that's very true. In general, they do. So for me, I look at them and I take one apart and I think this is just very cool. And I'm still kind of amazed sometimes when I think about what these things will contain and still function. It shouldn't work. They just shouldn't work.
Well, if I could, the next thing I kind of want to talk about, Grant, is something you posted on your Facebook page, and everybody should be looking for you on Facebook if they have it, and that's you just look up Grant Cunningham, author and instructor. But you posted up a post here a couple days ago. Sometimes training is about learning not to shoot, and that's one thing we talk about a lot here, but if I could, I really enjoyed that post. Could I have you talk just a little bit about that?
Sure. When we look at defensive gun uses in this country, and depending upon, excuse me, depending upon who you talk to, whether you take Lott's work or anybody else's, we have several 100,000 defensive gun uses a year in this country, and very, very few of them actually result in rounds being fired, and fewer still rounds being fired justifiably. So a lot of what we do in defensive gun use is, in fact, using the gun other than shooting. Now, we contrast that to what happens in a typical training course where you're there to shoot. Every command that you have is some form of thing to shoot. You get upset if you don't shoot, and a lot of people will measure the value of a training class based upon how many rounds they get to shoot. And so there's this disconnect between what we know we need to do with the gun and what history says we need to do and what we actually do on the training range. And so the idea that every time we pull our gun, every time we draw our gun or get it out of the quick access safe next to the bed, that we're going to pull the trigger and fire it, I think is a dangerous idea. And so as over the last year or so, I've come to incorporate more no shooting drills in my courses, and the idea is to make people process the information that they're being given and make a decision based upon that information whether they need to shoot, and if they need to shoot, what they need to shoot. And I think that's a much better paradigm when we look at how we're actually going to use a defensive gun. I think that's a much better paradigm than just shooting every time you pull the gun out of the holster. And so that's what I'm trying to emphasize these days in my courses.
Well, wow. As a student, I'm told two different things. After a controlled pair, I need to assess, but don't ever present unless I'm willing to shoot. Is that consistent, or you're trying to make us evaluate all the way through the trigger press?
I think you should be assessing all the way through the incident. For instance, we're assessing as somebody comes up to us, somebody unknown comes up to us. We're assessing whether or not he's a threat. We're assessing his attack cues. If we need to shoot, we assess as we shoot. I don't teach the idea of a controlled player and then assess. I teach assess as you shoot. Do I need to shoot this guy? Do I need to shoot this guy again? Do I need to keep shooting this guy? Do I need to stop shooting this guy? And that's a really important one. When we're talking private sector self-defense, do I need to stop shooting this guy? And all of those things have to happen as you shoot. You have to assess as you shoot. And so I think that when you draw the gun, you have to understand that the situation may entail you actually shooting it, and you have to understand when that you can legally and be willing to. But that doesn't mean that you have made that decision yet. That decision to shoot needs to be conscious. The execution of that decision can be automated in the sense that you learn these skills and you just employ the skills. But the decision to shoot has to be conscious.
Now, Grant, let me ask you a question. One of the things you just said was that you teach after the person has shot whether to shoot again. With the adrenaline dump, the adrenaline rush, the narrowing of your perspective, how do you overcome the chemical forces in your body to learn to say stop rather than just keep shooting?
That's, of course, something that we struggle with, and this is something that, particularly in police service, you hear this all the time. The police will start shooting, and it takes them a certain amount of time to recognize that they don't need to shoot anymore. And there's always going to be that time lag. We have to accept the fact that there's going to be that time lag between when we decide to stop shooting and when we actually do. Okay, with that being given, our natural tendency is a threat fixation. Everything that happens physiologically, everything that happens neurologically, forces us to fixate on that threat. And because we're gathering tons of information about that threat, because among other things, we get an increase in the resolution that we have in our vision. So we're gathering a huge amounts of information. It's a matter of deciding that we're going to use that information and process that information as we shoot. And part of it, quite frankly, is looking at the target. I think it was Lou Chiodo, who was for years the chief of handgun training or defensive shooting training at California Highway Patrol, said in order to make good decisions you have to have information, and the only way you get information is to look at the threat. And so that's what I'm teaching these days. Look at the threat, get the information you need to decide to shoot and decide to stop shooting. And that's how we work that.
One more thing then is, and I wanted, because we're coming up on the end of the segment here, I want you to mention, I noticed you've been teaching some, revolver-specific courses recently.
Yeah.
Could you talk about that, and do you have any more coming up?
Yeah, I do. Threat-centered revolver, because of the fact that I spent so many years working with revolvers and talking about revolvers, and it's a long story, but it was really for my own use because I couldn't shoot a revolver with a damn, and I really wanted to. And so along the way, I kind of got to be something of a subject matter expert in the field. And so a lot of people come to me and they say, gee, we want to learn to shoot our revolver. Now the trouble is that a lot of people don't really know how. And in fact, I get a lot of law enforcement students who are carrying a revolver as a backup gun and never learn to shoot it very well because their instructors at the police department or at the academy don't know how to shoot a revolver. And shooting a revolver is different than shooting an autoloader. It is not the same. The revolver, is, I like to say, is not a low-capacity autoloader. And so a threat-centered revolver is a subset of the handgun class I do, aimed specifically at revolvers, dealing with their unique demands, dealing with the extra time that we have to spend mastering trigger control, reloading the gun, and all that other stuff that's a little difficult to get in when you've got a mixed class of revolvers and semi-autos. And so that's been very popular. I just finished a class in Phoenix here last weekend, actually, and I'll be going to Indiana, Cleveland, California, I think. I'd have to look at my schedule. Detroit. I'll be in Detroit at the end of the year teaching this. So there are a lot of people around the country that want to learn to use the revolvers, and they just don't have anybody who can teach them properly. So that's the genesis of that class.
Awesome.
Grant, I think of the revolvers as being an older class of gun than the autoloaders.
Okay, go ahead. My other computer decided to go off.
It says you're late, whatever that means.
Yeah.
In general, we've lived with revolvers a little bit longer than autoloaders, but there are both innovations and some just crazy marketing schemes that, I looked at, I'm not sure if it was this shot or the previous shot, where someone had essentially removed two of the cylinders on the revolver assembly so that it would lie flat on one side against your hip. And I went, that's either brilliant or dumber than sled tracks, and I'm not the guy to judge. You probably see many more things like that than I do. What's out there?
Excuse me. I think that was probably the silliest thing I've seen in a long time, I got to tell you. And we won't name the company because they're already mad at me for saying this. But yeah, it is a silly idea because it actually complicates the lockwork rather dramatically, because it has to go part way, and then you have to open it up, and then it has to go back in the same position so it can rotate part way again. Just absolute silliness. That's got to take the cake. I mean, I've seen some. When on a scale of silliness, and if we lump all firearms together on a scale of silliness, man, that is right up there, about 9.8, 9.9. There have been some other silly things. I think I'm going to pick on Taurus. Taurus made the revolver with the Lexan side plate, which apparently didn't work very well because they discontinued it right away. The same gun is now available with an aluminum side plate. So there have been some silly things like that, but I think three-shot revolver, boy, that's right up there. Man,
I do have a question. Do you think anybody will ever successfully come up with a revolver that does not use moon clips, but will take 9mm or other auto-loading cartridges?
That's a serious issue. I've worked with one major manufacturer to actually do that, and despite having some really, really talented engineers working on it and trying various things, they were unsuccessful. And everybody's tried. There have been several approaches to it, and none of them have been entirely successful. There are two sort of competing issues. First of all, you need to reliably extract the cartridges from the cylinder, which is one issue. And then you have to be able to easily drop rounds back into the cylinder, whether you want to use a speed loader or however you do it. And they're sort of diametrically opposed in what you need to do mechanically. And so nobody's found the Holy Grail yet, and there have been lots of tries, and nobody's found it yet. I have an idea how it can be done, but it would end up in a gun that has a cylinder about this big around.
Yeah.
Kind of an issue. So yeah, I think it could be done. I don't think it's going to be done anytime soon, and partly because A, the market for it would be relatively limited, and B, the cost of machining all the parts would be relatively high, and because they would use very small, very closely fit parts to do it, would probably have reliability issues as well. So it's a problem, and nobody's really solved it yet. And I'm aware of several concepts that other manufacturers have tried that never even made it past the prototype stage because they just proved to be unworkable for some reason or another. If you want to use auto-loading cartridges in a revolver, realistically, at this point, you're going to use moon clips if you want it to be reliable.
Well, we are coming up on the end of the segment. If people want to get more Grant Cunningham, they can usually stop by Doc Wesson's show, and you do, like I said, you do post to Facebook a lot. Where else can they get your information?
Yeah, I'm all over social media. You can reach me at www.grantcunningham.com, which is my shooting and general gun site where I talk about all kinds of things about shooting. And then, of course, here at personalsecurity.us, that's my training site, where you'll find information about all my classes and about all the training stuff that I do. So those two sites post a lot of stuff there. And of course, the Personal Security Institute has a Flipboard magazine, and you can reach that through the site. There are links for that. And of course, the Twitter and the Google and the Facebook and all that kind of thing, too.
Very cool. Well, I do want to thank you for joining us again. And I want to have you back again soon, man.
I look forward to it. Anytime you need somebody, and Doc doesn't show up, hey, I'm your man.
Hey, but
And I'll
we
bring
better,
kombucha.
Doc.
And then we'll make sure we have a kombucha for you next time.
Yeah. This is yeah. All right.
All right. We're going to
Thanks,
step
guys.
aside the break. We're going to step aside the break here, and when we come back, we'll have our next interview with Alice Kincaid. So hang on, everybody. We'll be right back right after this. Very cool.
I'm not so sure about kombucha, but they do like kefir, so
Well,
which
yeah,
is fermented.
it's fermented. So yeah, you might actually like kombucha. It's that same class of drink. And this has a lot of fruit juice in it. You can get it without fruit juice, but the fruit juice makes it a little nicer to drink. So.
Hey, Grant,
Yeah.
I was touring a collection, and a guy showed me, I think it was an old Webley, that it was an auto-loading revolver, meaning the whole thing recoiled above the grip plane. And I thought, wow, that's okay. So it's a circular magazine. It's still clever. And then I thought, well, the next major issue to address would be the jetting, right in front of the forcing cone. Is there anybody that's found a way to tackle that?
Yeah. By the way, the Webley Fosbury is it's a very expensive gun now. They're very rare.
I'll bet.
Interestingly enough, Emilio Giussoni, before he did the Rhino, actually did a modernized version of that called the Unica 6, which was produced by his company Matiba. There has been one revolver that attempted to solve the problem of escaping gases, and that was the Nagant from Russia.
Oh.
And it was an absolute dismal firearm in every respect that you can possibly imagine.
Yeah, you are tying on a world of problems when you do it.
Well, and the fact that it wasn't built very well, and
On top of that,
yeah, had that wonderful Russian machining that we're also taught. And yeah, it was just it was a miserable gun, just an absolutely miserable firearm. But when you cock the hammer or pull the trigger, the cylinder came forward, and the ammunition is actually the bullet actually sits down inside the case, so the case goes around the forcing cone and contains the gas. And
Yes.
from that standpoint, it actually worked. From every other standpoint, it was just a pile of crap.
That sounds like the Nagant revolver.
That's a Nagant revolver. Yep.
Yep.
Thank you
That's
for the
it.
history lesson, Grant.
Yeah, it's you can buy. By the way, you can buy them. They're cheap right now. I think you can probably still pick one up for about $100.
Yep.
Yep, they're all over out there. So if you want one, grab one.
I'm not. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, if the Nagant revolver has recoil issues like the Nagant rifles, no thanks. I like my
No.
wrists. I don't want them broken.
No, it really doesn't, because they use a very, very low-powered cartridge. So you won't have recoil issues with that gun.
Do we
Well,
want to try and do the intro now?
yeah, let's go ahead and try and get the. And you're welcome to hang out, Grant. You can take off whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I'm gonna take off. I've got things to do yet this afternoon. So see you guys later. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Grant.
Bye.
Steven. I don't know how. I mean, other than I sent because it's not a Gmail address. The invite got sent through regular email. I don't know how to send the invite again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I sent a copy.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Let me flip over to show notes here, and we will attempt an intro.
I think, Rob, in reference to your question, don't draw unless you're prepared to shoot, has been expanded a little bit into don't draw unless you're going to shoot. And that's never was what was meant to be said.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I mean,
Yep.
Okay. I think that's kind of people have jumped.
There you go. You need justification before you go for the gun. But there's always a justification to stop.
Yeah, right. But don't draw to shoot. Draw to be prepared to shoot, and then don't draw unless you are prepared to shoot. If somebody's threatening you and is running at you from a block away, you don't have to shoot them, but you should draw. You know,
from a block away, really?
I would.
Someone's screaming at you that they're going to kill you, and they're running at you.
All right.
All right.
Well, I mean, you may be a runner. I couldn't make it. I can't. There's these links that are giant. I can't find a DGU to. Somebody help me find a DGU to open with.
Oh, by the way, Rob, do I sound better now?
Nope.
No, still digitally clipped. Huh?
Yeah, you're still talking to me down the sewer pipe.
Huh.
Wow. Okay.
Now it might just be me.
Might be you because it sounds clear here.
Cool.
I'm going to say I'll just put in, and we have not one but two DGUs from Albuquerque. How's that sound?
Okay. Excellent.
Fabulous. You're going to say it, or were you finding something for me?
I'm finding it for you.
Thank you.
I sent her another email. If she will march on, and
Yep.
she gets what she gets.
Worst comes to worst, I can just edit out the throw to her from the end of the Grant Cunningham interview. All right. Make sure. Yep, that's right.
Did you get a chance to look at the what is this? 215, 214?
It's all put together. It's all thrown up. It's
Okay. I was hoping it would go together pretty easy.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's set for release tomorrow morning, 6 a.m.
Yeah, I saw that part. Good.
Okay, here we go. Coming back in 5. Hi, and welcome to the Polite Society podcast. Let me start that again. I'm sorry. Hi, and welcome to the Polite Society podcast presented by the Firearms Policy Coalition. We're recording this one live Sunday, March 1st, 2015. I'm Paul Lathrop.
I'm John Richardson, and on tonight's show we'll talk with Grant Cunningham about SHOT Show and wheel guns.
I'm Rob Morse, and we'll also talk with Alex Kincaid about gun rights and the Idaho legislature.
I'm Gary Doherty, and we have not one, but two DGUs from Albuquerque.
So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Episode 315 of the Polite Society podcast starts right now.
Well, maybe.
All right, that was a big enough blank.
Hey, and welcome back. This is the personal news segment of the show. We're going to start off tonight with Rob. Rob, what's been up with you since the last time we talked, man?
Yesterday, I was part of a group that, well, you've had it. A friend asks a friend to learn to shoot, and pretty soon you've got, in our case, 13 doctors and nurses. And the guy who said, "Sure, I'll help," went, "Help! I need all my buddies." So we all gathered, and they had a good time. I mean, let's face it, what you want to do is introduce new people to shooting. They may have seen it, they may have done it a long time ago, but this was, "Hi, let's do it right, keep you safe, keep you interested," but you also let the silly things slide, like, "Okay, I've got you past the teacup grip. I'm going to just ignore what you do from the waist down. I don't know why you're standing like that because you saw it in the movie, but we'll let it go." They had a great time. I hope they'll be back.
Okay.
Well,
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what the stance was, but I try, even with friends, you try and make sure they're balanced. A lot of times people stand with their feet too close together.
Well, this guy literally put one foot against one side of the lane, the other foot against the other side of the lane. I'm going, a lot of lateral load from firing my 22-8. I just didn't. Fine. Didn't hurt anything.
Depending on, I have to do that because that's shoulder width.
Yes, I understand. No,
but
it wasn't for him.
I had one guy, martial artist, and instead of a forward boxer style stance, he was very comfortable in what we call martial arts a back stance.
Yeah.
So his weight was more back, but he was very stable. So I wouldn't fix that. I just
right.
checked with him, and so yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, John, you're up next, man. What's been up with you?
Well, went down to play with my granddaughter. She is gorgeous. We got back just before the show. Took some time, went to a gun show yesterday in Winston-Salem. I saw a lot of green tip 5.56 ammo for sale at inflated prices. For example, a box of American Eagle, 150 cartridges in a box of American Eagle green tip, which Walmart was selling for $69 last week. This guy had for $96.
Wow.
So there's some definite price gouging going on. And the other thing I noticed about this gun show, it was that it was much more diverse than our local shows here in Asheville. I saw quite a number of African Americans, as well as some Asians, both Chinese, Japanese, and what I call South Asian or Indian. And I take this as actually a very good sign for the gun culture. I mean, it's not just us old white guys. Didn't buy much stuff. I just came home with a cap because it was in the new multicam jungle pattern. Whatever. I mean, I've got plenty of caps, but it was kind of cool looking. And a bunch of AR stripper clips. So I can put all my green tip ammo on it.
Okay. All right. Gary, you're up next, man. What's been up with you?
Well, we spoke with a sponsor this week. Not just because he's a sponsor, but I've received recommendations from you, Paul, and other people not associated with the show recommended his holsters. So I talked to Jason at Concealment Solutions about building my double magazine pouch for my double stack magazines for my para. Like I said, I've been talked a couple times on the show about that becoming my new main carry gun, and he asked me for some magazines, or a magazine to size it, so I just ordered a bunch and had them sent to him because I needed more anyway. Saved me one extra shipping step, and so he's working on that. I'll be talking to him. They'll be there Wednesday or Thursday, and then I'm sure I'll speak with him about that end of the week or beginning of the following. So I'm looking forward to it. It's very helpful. Excuse me. Just easy guy to talk to, knows his stuff. So great.
Yeah, I really like Jason. I'm hoping in the near future to get him on the show. He's an extremely busy guy, and getting his schedule and mine to match doesn't always work so well.
Sure. Yeah.
Gary, let me ask you a question. I know you have a para, and within the last week or two, Remington has decided that they're going to merge para in with the Remington line. Given that, are you buying a lot more magazines so you won't be magazine less in the future?
I'm up to 5. I don't think that's going to become an issue.
Okay.
I don't know if the other, let's call it 2011 style STI type 1911s. I don't know if their magazines are the same or not. But I got them from Brownells, and I don't think they're going to be running out. The article I read says that their intention is to continue they're going to actually. I'm surprised they're going to get rid of the para name, but keep making the gun. So I thought that was interesting, but that's what.
All right, just make it under the same brand name.
As a Remington 1911 double stack, So
Okay.
Even though para has a much longer history with 1911s than Remington.
Right, exactly.
And I want to point out directly to Trevor Furlot that he just did say yes, the STI 2011 branded 1911, I believe were his exact words. So yet more proof that a STI is a 1911.
What the 2011 is a 1911? Is that what you're saying? I misunderstood.
It's the same. It's the same action. It's a double stack 1911. Is what an STI is.
Yeah.
Okay. See,
yeah,
we all agree for
Para makes both. Para makes a double stack and a single stack, but they call them all 1911s, as opposed to like an STI or what's that other one? I'm blanking, but that call their double stacks of 2011 as opposed to 1911.
Yeah, it's a naming thing. Yeah. So, all right. Anything else, Gary, before we move on?
No, that's it. I mean, I noticed. I was thinking about it earlier this week that I don't mention it, but I dry fire almost every week. I know I teach that in my classes, and we've talked about it off air. So I just want to, I really think, and I don't think this is a tremendous amount of time. I suggest 20 to 30 minutes max, because you want to be crisp in your practice as opposed to doing it for 2 hours and allowing yourself to get sloppy. Get the gun out, get the ammunition out of the room, whatever room that is. Set up a target. I have those laser lights, whatever it is that works for you, and just do it a little bit, but do it with precision. Be crisp with your practice, and I do that almost every week, at least 3 weeks out of the month. So I recommend that.
I would agree with that. The only thing I would add to that, and I get this directly from Captain Jackson, is no matter what, if you're going to be pressing the trigger, make sure you are pointing the gun in a safe direction, meaning make sure your target has a backstop behind it. Should the unthinkable happen, and there is a round in there, make sure whatever's behind your target can stop that round safely.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, that goes without saying. Dry fire practice, any kind of practice, should still follow the 4 safety rules and be safe.
Hey, Gary.
Yo.
I had 2 little wrinkles on just practicing a trigger press.
Uh-huh.
One was I moved essentially the pipe plate. I backed up, so I was working the entire length of the house to try and stay on target. The other one somebody showed me was essentially putting a pencil dot on a Post-it note and now walk right up to the target. So that, again, that's trying to control the very small motions. I've just started doing both. I learned a little bit from each.
Okay. I got the second one. So you put a dot on the Post-it note,
and now
get it on target, and then walk up to it while maintaining your.
No. Just when you do it, that dot will be perfectly in focus because it's only an inch in front of the barrel.
Okay.
And now stack it on top of the front sight.
Right.
So both tests, the near and the far test, are designed to help you really work on trigger squeeze and fine alignment.
Tell me the fire test again.
Just you and I. Most houses, it's easy for me to work at 5 yards. If I want to work at the whole width of the house, I have to, move things around a little bit to get, 50, 60, 50 feet away from the target?
Yeah. Yeah. Angles is another good way to get that maximum distance.
Right.
In those situations, you might the threat might be at an angle.
Okay.
So obviously, you and I've spoken about it before. We're getting away from standing in a square range, shooting straight. So same thing with your dry fire. Draw. Because it is dry, you can put your target at a 45-degree angle, and then so you're drawing and stopping the threat there. Something jumps out, something could jump out of a corner, an animal or a person. So
you can work, coming around the weak side of a corner or an unusual position. All right. More to add for next week.
Right, and like I said, if you're doing that diagonal, you're getting that extra distance that you're talking about adding too. So it's good too. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That leaves Susan and I, and let's see here. Well, first of all, we added a new team member this week, Charlie Foxtrot. For those that know him on Facebook, came aboard. He used to do. He was called when Mark and Doc did the Barstool discussion. He was called the Scribe. Well, he basically helped them with show notes, and he's coming on and helping us with show notes and preparation and research as well. And you may hear from him on the air. You may not. He's excuse me. He's not one that much wants to be on the air, as you may have noticed from the last time he was on the air list. But if this week's show notes are any bit of a guide, he is going to be helping us a lot. So I do want to welcome him aboard. Thank you, Charlie Foxtrot. We do really appreciate your help. As far as Susan and I, personal news, what's happened with us. I was out on the road this week. I planned on working all of Saturday. Didn't quite work out that way. On Friday, I had somebody take the mirror off of the truck. Basically pulled out of a parking spot at a truck stop and turned too close and ripped my mirror off on the driver's side. Now, it's almost impossible to see out the driver's side of your truck behind the driver's window.
Yeah, that's not an inconvenience. That's a big issue.
Yeah.
That's a huge issue. And so when I got to, two things happened. The person I was supposed to be relaying this load to, I was stopping at a small truck stop in Fremont, Nebraska. Well, the person I was going to be relaying this load to had a little bit of an issue with his truck, and before the incident I had, he was going to take his truck down to Omaha and get a fast repair made and meet me back up there. Then Saturday morning I would go continue with what I was going to be doing and get home. Well, I get a call from my boss about 6 o'clock saying, yeah, his truck has a flaw that's going to, it's got an issue that's going to take until at least Tuesday to fix. So what they need me to do is take this trailer I got to the truck stop with a mirror. I now need to take the truck without a mirror to a place, back it into a fairly tight hole, and then go pick this guy up at the repair shop and run him back to the shop up here near where I live. I was able, believe it or not, to back with only one mirror on the passenger side, I was able to back the truck into the spot where we have our relays in the Omaha area, and then pick this guy up, and spent 3.5 hours listening to him not shut up. This guy's got about 2.5 years of driving experience. I've got 13 and counting, and he proceeded to tell me how he knew absolutely everything, and when I tried to do a counterpoint, he just let me know what an idiot I was. He almost walked the 200 miles. So I was really pleased to get home and get him out of the truck and get silence on the little 20-minute drive to my house after I dropped the truck off. And by the way, he isn't exactly a pro gun guy either. So yeah, I kept I was wearing inside the waistband, and it stayed there and it stayed concealed.
Yeah. Just so you know, I have a little button on my car that folds the mirrors in. Whenever I park somewhere I think it might be trouble, you might want to get that.
No, yeah, well, that's a really nice thing, except for you're talking, I suppose, 1-inch diameter steel bars that are on the side of the mirrors of trucks. That's really tough to fold in.
It's a little motor. I got a little motor that just brings them in automatically.
Yeah. All right. But as far as firearms directly related, not anything really. Did a little bit of dry fire practice, and that's about all I've done with firearms this week. I've been thinking about getting a new gun belt, and been starting the research on that. And I think the best gun belt around, and I'm going to be going with Jason Christensen with his. With the gun belt he makes. I'll be talking with him later in the week as well. So, but I've just started that research. I haven't gone far into that yet. So, why don't we go ahead and do this? I want to mention before we go to a break, we're going to be having training coming up in Sioux Falls this summer. I have talked with Chaz Murray and with Ken Kowalski, and that one is going to be August 1st and 2nd. Next weekend, John Holloway joins us on the show. He's going to be up here training. He'll be talking about that as well. And that one is going to be a really cool class. I can't wait for that one. Before that one, we got last week you heard Ben Brannon was on the air. He and Bob Main are going to be coming up and doing Beyond Concealed Carry Enhanced. May 15th and 16th, I believe, is the dates on that one. But you can get to that one through handgunworld.com. And, of course, we've got Kathy Jackson coming up August 15th and 16th, and you can email Susan at politicsandguns.com if you want information on that one. So we're going to go ahead and step aside to break. When we come back, we've got a bunch of news. Imagine that. We'll get to that news right after this. I want to try something here real fast. I wanted to do it after when we weren't right on the air, so, well, we weren't recording directly. I want to try something. Okay, can you hear me now, and am I any clearer?
Whoa, way better.
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
I'm going to take a quick bio break.
Off the laptop?
What was that, Rob?
You changed feeds?
No, well, basically what I did was somehow it didn't pick up the external mic when it got plugged in.
Yeah, and exactly. So, of course. Okay, and it was right back.
All right.
Oh, I heard from Kincaid. She'll be on in a half hour. So let's jump in the news.
You bet.
You're a little hot on my end. I don't know if anybody else. If you just back off your signal a little bit, balance it.
Audio check 1 2 test 3 4.
Yeah, it's so much clearer. He's right. I mean, I didn't hear the bad sound, but it's definitely a lot clearer.
Okay, how's my level now? Am I still blowing you out of the water?
No, that's good.
Okay, Susan, you want to do it? You want to give a mic check?
Do I want to do what? I don't want to do anything if I don't have to.
Oh, baby, we'll do that later.
Shh.
He You're gonna do nothing later?
All right. No, seriously. How?
Nothing you need to know about.
Whoa.
Okay.
Wasn't asking.
But you can hear and understand her, and she's not overloading your mic.
Yes.
Okay.
Your thingies.
Yeah.
Hey.
I'll let you overload my thingy anytime you want, baby.
Behave yourself. So naughty.
Live. YouTube's gonna give you an X.
I think John's frozen up.
I know he's not.
Now
Can you hear me?
No, I can hear you. You just weren't moving.
I thought you were gonna say Rob was frozen up because he had to put a jacket on.
not to make just a little bit of fun of people who are trying to travel in the winter. And Paul, I know it's misplaced. So a bunch of people have tried to move across the country that I work with, and they're sending me pictures of ice on the airplanes in Dallas, Fort Worth. My wife just sent me a picture. Well, was supposed to go through Dallas. Here I am in Seattle trying to get to Indiana.
Yeah, it's not exactly a direct route.
Well, I guess Seattle's warmer than Dallas, so they can get the planes in and out.
Sure.
Well, it was
Mr.
warmer up here in the mountains than it is down in the Piedmont. There's a lot more snow on the ground in the Greensboro, Winston-Salem area than there is in Asheville.
Dallas doesn't have any equipment for the weather, Rob. That's
Okay,
why.
they do. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they de-ice, but evidently they're not as well as Chicago.
No.
Yeah, they de-ice, but they don't have plows for runways and stuff like that.
No, they don't.
Yeah, that's
No, they don't.
I mean, it was an ice storm. My office closed Monday and Friday. Monday completely and Friday early because the ice storms were happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nasty.
Yeah, ice will get you killed.
Four-wheel drive doesn't work on ice.
No, it's just...
It'll get you going, but it doesn't do crap worth stopping you.
Oh,
Yeah.
Paul, I did see this picture of, like, it was somewhere in the Midwest. There were these 6 Jeeps in forming a train, each one with a cargo strap, and they were just on the highway someplace, and they used it to get, there was evidently some little crown in the road. They were helping a semi-tractor trailer get towed into, like, the off-ramp.
Wow.
We did that something like that with our first Dodge in the mud out at your dad's farm.
Yeah. I had my semi truck got just the tractor, no trailer, but it got stuck in the mud out at my dad's farm.
Yeah.
And we hooked a Dodge pickup up to the front end of it, and that Dodge pickup yanked her out real effectively. We did get a feedback from Mr. Pats. He says, I'm checking in and saying hello. He says, I got my silencer. Rob, if you ever get to my neck of the woods in the state of Texas, I would like to take you shooting.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. I got to find a reason or an excuse.
And he says, Paul, I have been driving big, and that's the end of
Truck
the
since 9/12/1991.
Okay, there you go. Longer than me. So, okay. Put my glasses back on so I'm getting old eyes. I have to take glasses off to read the phone, put them back on to read the laptop.
Could it be time for bifocals?
No.
Hush.
No.
Hush. We don't like bifocals around here. That's why I don't wear mine.
I'm not bi.
You know, that message shows up on the Hangout toolbox after you set it up, Paul. I'm looking at it right on my screen.
What message is that?
The
From
one
Mr.
Pats.
Oh,
Very cool.
okay. Very cool.
Maybe you ought to think about doing that.
I know how to
mind.
do. I know how to do what I know how to do, and I'm not going to explore it while I'm on the air.
And you do it well.
Thank you.
We'll figure it out some other time.
Exactly. All right.
Come on, let's do some recording here, Susan.
Yeah. News segment. Who wants to bring it? Rob, you want to bring us in?
Yes.
And coming. We are recording. We are rolling now.
Welcome to the Polite Society podcast, presented by the Firearms Policy Coalition. This is our first news segment. Susan, what's up?
The National Rifle Association CEO and Executive Vice President Wayne LaPierre spoke before the Conservative Political Action Conference, CPAC, this Friday. In a rousing, well-received speech, LaPierre called the NRA, quote, freedom's safest place, unquote, saying that the right to keep and bear arms and rights in general are all linked. In the Breitbart report, LaPierre was also quick to call out the liars in media who shy away from reporting the truth about guns in America, pronouncing anti-gun laws, quote, a waste of time and nanny state social schemes, unquote. LaPierre asserted that existing gun laws that protect the citizenry from criminals are not enforced. Quote, face the truth. Individuals are in charge of our own security. Politicians can't and won't protect you. Only the ironclad safeguard of the Second Amendment to keep and bear arms can protect you, end quote, he insisted. Guns empower women, LaPierre continued, pointing to the NRA's Refuse to be a Victim program, which teaches women how to protect themselves, with and without a firearm. Quote, you don't empower women leaving them defenseless, and you don't strengthen a nation by taking its weapons, end quote, he says. LaPierre concluded by calling for Congress to pass right to carry reciprocity and pass it today, which received approval from the CPAC audience.
I wrote to both senators from South Dakota and to the House rep from South Dakota, and I got back crickets except for from John Thune. I sent him a email thanking him for co-sponsoring that legislation, and I sent a letter encouraging the other two to co-sponsor the legislation, and I got back crickets from my other senator and from Representative Kristi Noem. But John Thune sent me back a email saying, you know, thanks, I do appreciate you emailing me. I know this is important to you, and I intend on continuing to fight for our Second Amendment rights. I'm very, very tightly synopsizing that, but I wanted to give them a shout out on the air because I think national right to carry reciprocity is important. I wish we didn't have to have it, but we do, and I'm glad it's looking like it could make it through both houses.
Paul, let me ask you a question. How many do you have? I know you have a South Dakota permit. Do you have other states?
At the current time, no. I will be getting a Utah one in the very near future. Right now, I just have South Dakota.
In reciprocity, if we get it, and we should, you wouldn't need to do that. You would just have your South Dakota one. You don't have to get a Utah one. You don't have to get a Florida one. In one sense, I'm lucky with my North Carolina that I've got 34, maybe 35 states. But still, I can't go through Illinois without unloading before I cross the Ohio River and then reloading after I cross the Mississippi.
To be really technical, you can carry as long as you don't get out of your car.
Yeah.
You can carry in Illinois does accept your permit to carry inside the car in Illinois.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is basically true. In South Dakota, 19 states and the District of Columbia do not accept my permit. And part of the email that I wrote to Senator Thune and Senator Rounds and Representative Noem, I just basically wrote out one email and copied it over and changed a few details. But that one thing I said, you know, I shouldn't have to disarm because I was born and live on the wrong side of the tracks.
Well, yeah, I blew into the wind at my two senators, and of course, excuse me, you know, form letter and crickets. They're both not on my side. We have different opinions on all of this, and I still feel compelled to say something, but it falls on deaf ears.
But it still puts it on record.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I sent it in, and I'm looking at PopVox. The House bill has got a 94% approval rate. The Senate bill, 93.
Nice.
and my two senators are not listening.
Are not right, of course.
I understand
Of course.
that that's an approval rating. They're not listening.
Well, nor is mine. I get a form letter saying, "Oh yes, that's."
I'm glad to say at least one of my senators right now is a co-sponsor, and the other one probably will end up being a co-sponsor.
That's great. That's good.
Well, yeah, Hudson is the House bill sponsor, so you ought to get a little support.
Oh, Marlon Stutzman, I think, introduced it in the House.
That sounds right, yeah.
Okay, maybe there's more than one bill.
Could be.
Yeah, there are several bills in the House. There's like 4 or 5. The one I urged Representative Noem, my personal representative, to co-sponsor the one that is the twin, is the what do you call it? The exact same bill as the Senate has.
The constitutional
Right.
Constitutional Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act
Right.
of 2015 or something to that effect.
Right. I encouraged her to co-sponsor that one because there would need to be no committee reconciliation, and so there are others that go farther, that increase some other freedoms, but I think that one, I personally think that one has the best chance of getting to the president's desk. Now, again, we've mentioned this before. I'm going to mention it to our listeners again. If this thing gets passed through the House and through the Senate and gets to the president's desk as a solo bill, guess what, folks? It's getting vetoed. It's getting vetoed so fast it might light the paper on fire.
Right. Yeah.
But if it gets reintroduced as an amendment to a spending bill, such as a defense bill or any other appropriations bill, that really would be bad news if Obama didn't sign it. That's how we'll get it. That's how we got national park carry. That's how this will happen if it happens before we get a new president.
Yeah. Can I just say that I get frosty every time I read articles that compare concealed carry reciprocity to driver's licenses. The only aspect of that that's the same is that you have to follow the laws in the state you're in, and one permit covers every state and DC. Other than that, it's not the same at all. Driving is not in the Bill of Rights. It's not in the original Constitution.
Right. But the reason I did bring that up in both my letters, in all 3 of my letters, but the reason it's brought up is because of the 14th Amendment, is because of the
Full faith and credit.
Yes. That's why I bring it up, because my driver's license does protect me and my ability to drive in all 50 states, of which I do drive in. I can drive in 48 of them. I don't do Alaska; it's too damn far away.
And you don't do New York.
No, well, I don't do Hawaii. The pontoons on my truck just will not get me there.
They're never going to build a bridge.
You should fix that.
Right. Your license is good, and I agree with the 14th. But what I'm saying is, after that, they're not the same at all. And if you look over the past couple of weeks, there have been a couple of articles that I've seen comparing the two and saying, you have to go through all this massive testing and to get a driver's license, and they're not the same. So stop it.
All right. Well, I think we've kicked this one around enough. What's up next?
The Washington Examiner reports that the Obama administration's attempt to ban a very common type of ammunition is rapidly garnering opposition. As of Friday, 172 representatives, that's 40%, have already signed the letter questioning the logic and underlying reasons for the sudden revisions of the BATFE regulations. A similar effort is building within the Senate. Legislative leaders are concerned that this is the administration's backdoor attack on the popular AR-15 through though a ban of the popular SS-109/M855 62-grain 5.56 ammunition. The M855 has been in civilian hands for almost 40 years. It's a popular low-cost plinking and target shooting round with literally hundreds of millions bought for the nation's 9 to 10 million AR-15s. The proposed regulation change is a perversion of the letter and intent of the nation's laws and a further extension of Obama's pen and phone executive order negation of the Constitution. It is imperative to stop this Obama adventure now. It will only get worse in the remaining 22 months of this rogue presidency. Comment on the BATFE proposed regulations, call and write your legislators, and put a little cash in the hands of the NRA, SAF, and other worthy gun rights organizations. They're doing absolutely critical work in defense of your rights.
Absolutely. You know, this weekend I wrote my representative urging him to sign on to that letter, and he may already have signed on, but this would emphasize that I would want him to sign on to this letter. And the guy's actually the chief deputy majority whip, so his signature might carry a little bit of weight. And I would urge everyone to push their own representative to sign on to the letter.
Agreed totally, and that was tacked onto the bottom of my letters. The main purpose of my letter was concealed carry reciprocity, but I did mention it in the other letters I sent to my legislators.
And in the show notes, I also put another good site where you can use to send a message. It's called savem855.com. The thing I like about it is that they'll send a fax to both your representative and to the BATFE, charging you nothing, but you also have a choice of letters. There's like 3 different letters, including one written by an attorney. So,
I don't know how true this is, but a long time ago, before I started the show, I was talking with a representative, with a staffer in what was then the representative for South Dakota in her office, and they were telling me that you can email and it's counted. You can mail, but it may eventually get there, and it has to go through so much processing that a lot of the mail is almost totally destroyed because because of the poison, anthrax poisoning they had go through there quite a while ago. However, faxes must be logged and saved. So it's very effective if you want to get your opinion registered with your member of Congress to fax it in.
With technology, are they logged digitally or are they logged on paper?
At that time, I didn't ask. This has been more than 3 years ago that I did this, and I don't have a fax machine that I can fax out. I have a fax machine. It's just we don't have a landline at the house, so I generally don't.
You can fax via the web now.
Yeah, you can fax out a PDF. That's what I'm saying. Are they actually printing these? Because in Illinois, when we file these witness statements, they actually print them out and hold up a fistful of them. Which usually there's several hundred. I mean, it looks like 2 reams of paper they're holding up that they've actually printed out everybody's witness statements. I just didn't know if the faxes went that far.
That would be, I plan on calling everybody tomorrow because my truck won't be ready until late tomorrow at the earliest. So I planned on calling everybody tomorrow when I had a few minutes and wasn't doing 65 miles an hour, and that'll be a question I should ask if I get a staffer on the phone.
You know what I found fascinating about this whole controversy is and I would never have known except it's been covered now enough in the news, they showed a cross-section of the 855 projectile. Evidently, it was so long at some of the original twist rates, it would go unstable very easily. So they put a steel core in the back of the bullet that moved the center of gravity forward. It stayed stable longer. That made it armor piercing? Not in your life. It was really a way to make cheap, stable ammunition. I thought, how cool is that? Look what it looks like.
Well, according to the actual definitions that the ATF has through the Law Enforcement Officer Protection Act, etc.,
it doesn't qualify.
It does not qualify.
Yeah, but again, it's the phone in the pen. Who's gonna stop a corrupted administration?
Yeah.
Bonner and McConnell? Really?
Yeah. Well, correct me if I'm wrong. The reason why this stuff is cheap is because it's military and the overruns are what's being sold. Is that accurate?
I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
The stuff I bought has got the Lake City Ammo Factory stamp on the brass. So it's an overrun. Plus, I think the military is actually moving beyond the M855 to like the M855A1.
Okay.
Plus, they're also moving towards green ammunition, which kind of is a joke in my opinion, but that's another story.
Green ammunition, is that the one you use to shoot zombies with?
I don't know.
Sorry, bad joke.
But they're also actually moving a little beyond this to different cartridges or different bullets to use in the M4s. It's available. Basically, from what I understood, that the penetrator, the steel part, was meant not to go through a vest, but actually to go through like doors, so that when they were shooting, it didn't just fall apart when it went through the door.
Okay.
Unlike the 55 grain, which will tend to disintegrate.
All right. Well, I think we've kicked this one around a bit. Let's go ahead and step off to break. We got a lot more news to get to, and we'll get to that news right after this. Okay. Alex, can you hear us? You are muted right now.
Hi, Rob.
Well,
Did we have the time wrong? Did we have a time mix-up?
No, we just our other guest was done. I wondered if you wanted to come on. It'll work out.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I wasn't able to, but here you go.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We're dropping you in between news segments. You ready now?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the beautiful thing about podcasts is you can record it in any order and reorder it before you release it. What we're going to be recording right now is going to be released on Wednesday, is when it will become public. So.
All right.
Okay.
So, Counselor, I've been told that you don't ask surprising questions. You know what I'm going to ask you, right? Because you made some comments about Idaho and constitutional carry and.
Yeah, actually,
overreach.
I'm the attorney for the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, who is they wrote the bill. So, sure. I mean, I know generally what you're going to ask.
Okay, basically that. Didn't the legislature grant themselves constitutional carry? I mean, they don't need. Do they need to go get a permit in order to carry in chambers?
For years, we have several groups of elitist citizens here that don't need to get a permit. Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like you're getting closer to. And do you have a headset, or are you using a bench mic? What are you using?
No, I've got a mic sitting here. Do you want?
No. I can. You're turning your head. It changed. So you're getting animated.
Okay, I do. I get really animated, Rob.
Here, let me. Do I have my? Yes. This is the way I cheat. That way I can. Yes, with it follows me wherever I go. Okay, are we ready, Paul?
Yep. Since it's your setup for the interview, I'm gonna have you bring us in, And we are rolling now.
Even though we're not rolling. Okay. We have Alex Kincaid with us. Welcome back to our second interview segment with the Polite Society podcast powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. Yes, that's the Alex Kincaid of Alex Kincaid Law. Now, Alex was a prosecutor. She is a shooter. She advised companies in the firearms industry, and she has her own podcast. Welcome, Alex.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for being with us today. Now, you live in Idaho and help represent companies and the Second Amendment to the legislature in Idaho, don't you?
I do. I represent, we have a nonprofit organization here called the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, and I am their attorney.
Well, I would think that I'm not going to make fun of you too badly, but isn't that the world's easiest job? Idaho has a reputation as being both conservative and pro-gun.
You would think so. It's been very enlightening the last 3 sessions, though. That's how long we have been proposing and trying to get constitutional carry just in print as a bill in this state.
Well, wait a minute. The way I read it, then, the Idaho legislature really has some unfair firearms rules. Can't state legislatures carry simply because they're office holders?
Yes, there is an exception. There's a couple of elitist groups that are exceptions in our current statute. One of those is any publicly elected Idaho official doesn't have to apply for or have a concealed carry permit in order to carry concealed here.
They don't go through background checks?
No.
They don't have to take a training class?
Nope.
And they can carry places where even licensed citizens can't carry?
No, because our concealed carry statute doesn't give you any special privileges into certain locations. It just gives you the ability to, tuck your firearm under an article of clothing.
Are the Capitol chambers open to concealed carriers?
They are. They are,
Oh,
actually.
okay.
We're blessed here. We do have some good rules, and if you are a law-abiding citizen and you do have a concealed carry permit, you can still carry concealed into the Capitol building.
So as soon as I get elected, I essentially have constitutional carry, but what happened when it came up for the rest of us in the legislature?
Well, we're still not out of committee with the bill. We finally can call it a bill this session, but we're being stalled, and they're trying to get rid of that bill and not let it have a full hearing.
I understand that you're a lawyer, but lawyers don't actually have crystal balls. You want to speculate anyway why that's so?
Why it stopped? Well, I think we have certain people that don't want to share the privilege with the rest of the general public, and perhaps they're more interested in relationships with certain law enforcement agencies that are resistant to constitutional carry here than allowing our citizens to have the same privileges as our public officials.
Where does the legislative leadership come down on this issue?
Well, right now the leadership they're the ones who are stalling and holding the bill.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. We have a freshman legislator who is willing to sponsor the bill. She's from the northern part of our state, and she's willing to pick it up and take this on. But our leadership are the ones that are trying to squash it.
So did they move it to a kill committee essentially?
Yeah, pretty much. That's where it stands right now. And we have, and not only that, but you've probably seen in the news that so many gun owners have been calling to get this bill a full hearing that our leader said, "Stop calling me."
Boy, does that remind you of Colorado?
Well, yeah. I mean, instead of listening to what your constituents are asking for, please stop bugging us. We don't want to do what you want. I think they've got it mixed up a little bit on who's working for who here.
Oh boy, I hope that was recorded and makes it onto YouTube for every campaign spot that's going to run in the next election. Well, Alex, there was another reason, because I've heard, and I don't know whether it's the Department of Commerce exactly, from Idaho, I think it was at SHOT Show, tell everybody how friendly Idaho is if you're a firearms manufacturer. Come bring your business here. Really?
Well, exactly. We have had a push in this state because I'm also the attorney for another association here called the Idaho Firearms and Accessories Manufacturers Association. And this is another nonprofit who's trying to help make Idaho even more friendly for manufacturers and bring the manufacturers and dealers to our state. And that organization, along with the Department of Commerce, has historically had a big presence at SHOT Show. Well, come to our state, but, we're going to treat the citizens here such that they're not going to have the privileges of certain special people.
Yeah. We want you as long as you'll abide by our just don't rock the class structure.
Right. Well, and this has been ongoing, Rob. It's a lot of people are very upset, and it started also a couple of years ago with Guns and Ammo putting out their articles on the gun-friendly states. Have you seen those?
Yes. Oh, yeah. We cover it.
Yeah. So Idaho, we think we live in this great state. It's very pro-Second Amendment. Almost everybody has a gun, but we landed right in the middle in that first analysis. And we've moved up a little bit, but not much. And we learned we only moved up a little bit in the ratings because we passed this campus carry bill last year. But it's still sad to most gun owners here and frustrating that we are not more supportive of the Second Amendment and that we have people like we have now that are trying to prevent the citizens of the state from exercising their right to self-defense.
I bet they don't run on that platform when they try and get elected.
Well, yeah, they better not because, they're making it blatantly obvious where they stand on this issue.
Well, they say one thing in September and then vote another way after they're in office.
Of course, isn't that the way it always happens?
Well, no, that's why you and I get to, Alex, if all politicians were honest, I wouldn't get a chance to talk to wonderful people like you. Okay.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I just want to say thank you to Representative Heather Scott because she is that freshman that I mentioned who is, we're calling her the brave Republican freshman. She's been hailed by the Gun Owners of America for picking up this bill and sponsoring it and saying, you know what, I support the Second Amendment and I'm going to help the people of this state have this ability to carry.
If there was a long-lost gun owner in Idaho and he was one of our listeners, who should he call to apply a little bit of pressure on a phone line that the legislators don't want him to call?
You know what? Let me get an exact number for you because we've published, the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance has posted this stuff on their Facebook page over and over again, but I don't have phone numbers.
Well, okay, so go to that on Facebook and it's on the web as well?
Yeah, because then you're going to find the, Chairman Letcher is the person that is primarily responsible for this, and his phone number and information is posted on the Facebook page so that people can just access that information and dial in and send emails.
There you go. Now,
and House Speaker Scott Bedke is the other person, and yeah, I'm just checking it. It's all still up here, so.
Alex, you have a podcast as well.
I do. I have the Gun Law podcast.
Okay. That's an impossible task because there are, 23,000 gun laws? Do you restrict your specialization to Idaho?
No. My podcast is, I have national followers, and I try as much as I can to generalize so that people spot the issues because my goal in the podcast is to help educate other gun owners about the many, many laws that you just mentioned so they don't violate them. Because I meet with too many people who call me after they realize they have broken some law. And and I'm not talking about people that have shot somebody necessarily. I'm talking about innocent gun owners who have carried somewhere they shouldn't, they've possessed a gun somewhere they shouldn't, or they've transferred a gun in a way that violates the laws. And if our laws made sense, we probably would realize that more easily. But unfortunately, most of these gun laws are not in line with common sense, and people don't even realize they exist.
Well, you are a shooter. You were a prosecutor. How did you? What pushed you over? I mean, I'm from California. That's an unusual. I'm trying to fix it. I understand. That's an unusual combination to see in a legal Second Amendment advocate.
The prosecutor and shooter?
Yeah.
First of all, I am a California native. People probably don't know that about me.
It's a big state. Where were you from?
Well, I was born in Loma Linda. I did my undergrad at UC Davis.
Okay.
I spent a little time in Vacaville, but I did. Then I wound up in high school in Idaho, and this is my home.
Yeah.
So the combination, my dad was in law enforcement. He taught me to shoot at a very young age. He taught me responsibility. And I've carried guns most of my life.
Now it makes sense.
It's hobby and business combined, and I love it.
I would like to say to start with that I want to say congratulations to somebody that went to tie-dye U and is pro-gun. You got to be one of maybe two in the history of UC Davis that are pro-gun.
No, my brother went there.
Okay.
There's three.
Well, I said one of two. One of two. But a gun law podcast, man, you got to have. There's how do I put this? You'll never run out of things to talk about.
No, not yet.
Well, so let's give it a name, Alex. Tell our listeners where they can follow you.
My website is alexkincaidlaw.com, and Alex Kincaid, KINCAID law.com. I'm also on Facebook and most of the social media sites. You can follow me anywhere. My YouTube channel is just getting going, but in the next couple of months we'll have that up and running. So podcast is everywhere on all of. You can download it from any of your favorite apps. It's also on iTunes.
Now the name of the podcast again, just to make sure we've got it right.
It's the Gun Law Podcast.
Alex, I want to have you back because I wouldn't spring this on you without a little bit of preparation. California now can come and seize your weapons if someone in your house is on cold medication. I mean, someone can phone in a medical, what's the word, restraining order. And I wondered if firearms trusts were effective in delaying or preventing that seizure.
Unfortunately, probably not, because the trusts are not able to get around the state laws, and this is a really common question, Rob. I'm glad you asked it. One of the benefits, however, is that if someone is a resident of two states, it may be possible, provided that they meet part-time residency requirements here in Idaho, for example. I have clients who live in California, but they also are part-time residents of Idaho. We can draft a trust where they can keep firearms here. It comes down to possession, not necessarily ownership a lot of times, and that word possession can be a tricky one. So,
yes.
Yeah.
So even though the trust owns it, they cannot be in possession.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, another reason to have you back, I learned something this time.
Good.
Well, yes.
My day is complete.
Like to have you back because
you say it like you're surprised. I'm just pleased.
I would like to as well have you back because I would really like to dig deep into the firearms trust and specifically getting into the Class 3 stuff and how the fully automatics and things like that. But I've been wanting to discuss that with somebody for a while, and you sound like the perfect person to talk to somebody about that.
Thank you. Did you know that my last podcast was it's about an hour's worth of gun trust information?
Oh, awesome.
Which number is that?
Yeah. It's the very last one. It's number 22, I believe.
Okay, great. Alex?
Yeah, but I'd be happy. I'd be happy to come back and share it with your listeners because gun trusts are one of the areas where I get a lot of questions, and there is a lot of misinformation, particularly to be found on the internet. There are a variety of gun trusts, and they are not all equal. So people need to be very careful in what they think they're getting and what the trust is doing.
Yeah.
You mean that everything on the internet is not true?
Shocking. I know.
Especially legal
Shocking.
advice.
All right, we are coming up on the end of the segment here pretty quick, Alex. I do want to thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
When we come back, we've got our news segment coming up, and we'll get to that news right after this. Actually, I think it's the DGUs that are.
Yeah, it's you meant DGU. Nah, you get to edit it. Alex, will you be in Nashville? For the
You know
NRA
what?
convention?
No, I changed my plan. I was going to be there, and I canceled my plans. I'm finishing a book, and it is taking so much time and effort that I'm not going anywhere till the fall. So
Okay.
have a good time. I wish I could meet.
GRPC?
How about Phoenix, GRPC Phoenix? Can you make it there? That's in the last week of September.
Of September? I didn't know about that. What is it again? GRPC?
Whoa.
Yep. Gun Rights Policy Conference.
I've never gone to that.
Oh, you've got to go.
Okay.
It is.
Okay. Don't tell her, guys. Alex, I'll even pay your registration fee.
Oh. Is it free?
Yes.
and I'll buy dinner Friday night.
Yeah, that would be the other one.
Yes.
Is that provided to you? All right.
Yes.
Yeah, you guys are going to slip that by the lawyer. Good job.
You can't say we're not generous.
But okay, if SHOT Show is about hardware, and maybe NRA is about training and organization, GRPC is about software and law and civil rights.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right up your
yeah,
alley.
you know what? I think it would be perfect for me. Did you say the end of September though?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The like what? Because I'm going to Normandy.
Oh,
And
let me pull my calendar just a
I may
second.
not be here.
Because I've got it in my calendar. I just got to wait for it to load.
It's the last weekend. That much I do
Yeah.
know. And it traditionally always is the last weekend.
I should have. Yeah, I wish I'd known sooner.
25th
I'm
and
coming.
26th.
I'm coming back on October 1, so I'm gonna miss it.
Oh. All right.
Yeah,
You'll miss it this year.
I will. Next year I'm gonna hit it hard though. I'll be at all three, SHOT and NRA, and I'll put this one on the calendar early.
And if your plans change, you just fly right in that weekend, and there you are.
Okay.
And if you're somewhere where you have internet access and your plans don't change, we will be streaming it live.
Okay.
Oh, cool. Nice. All righty. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Talk to you.
Nice to meet you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Wow, that
guys.
was a cool interview.
Yeah.
That was
now
a
let's
very cool interview.
get back up.
Was she breaking up, or was it just me?
Yeah, no, she was breaking up.
And you were breaking up too.
Me?
Yeah.
You know, they say breaking up is hard to do. But
Evidently it's easier on Hangout than we thought. Okay, Harrisburg.
I think our next story is
Harrisburg.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
All right. Give me a second here. John, why don't you bring us back this time?
Sure.
Rolling now.
In 5. Hi, and welcome back to the news segment of the Let me start again. Hi, and welcome back to the news segment of the Polite Society podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. Susan, tell us what's going on in Harrisburg.
A judge ruled that 3 Harrisburg, Pennsylvania gun control ordinances were unconstitutional under state preemption law. Harrisburg had sought to prohibit gun possession in parks during a state of emergency or by minors. The judge ruled that city ordinances were stricter than Pennsylvanian law. The ruling is a positive step in the fight to eliminate illegal municipal firearms ordinances. The judge's rulings weren't all good news for gun owners. 2 ordinances were left standing. They restricted the discharge of firearms in city limits and required prompt reporting of lost or stolen guns.
There are a number of cities that are now under that preemption law. Harrisburg, I think, is the first one to fold under a judge's order. The other ones essentially saw the writing on the wall and repealed their laws. This is the first time a judge has forced it.
And I think there are going to be a couple more that will end up in court. Lancaster, maybe Philadelphia.
Right.
And as we reported on our last show, the Brady campaign had kind of given these towns assurances. We'll help pick up the legal bills, and then they backed out. We didn't really mean that. So.
Despite an Obama visit and a campaign war chest more than 4 times that of all of his challengers, Mayor Rahm Deadfish Emanuel failed to poll a majority in the election and will face a runoff. The 2-term Chicago mayor, progressive strategist, political brawler, and virulent anti-gunner will contest with leading challenger Jesus Garcia. Chicago voters, at least the ones that are alive, are questioning Rahm's performance as the mayor of the nation's 3rd largest city. There is growing discontent in Chicagoland's hoods over his elitist administration, faltering economics, demographic shifts, failing schools, and the increasing levels of violence within the city. Rahm, who did not have a runoff in his first re-election, is said to be disappointed, angry, and frustrated with having to devote energy and time to the additional campaign. Commentators are highlighting the dangers of a unified anti-Rahm effort backing Garcia. However, the few conservatives left in Chicago should not rejoice, as Garcia is described as being far to the left of Emanuel.
That's hard to do.
Yeah, it is. And I'm wondering...
Except in Chicago.
Except in Chicago, right. Well, Cambridge might be the other, but yeah. Berkeley, okay, you're right.
Yeah, he didn't face a runoff in his last election. I believe I read or heard that Chicago hasn't had a runoff for mayor in 50 years. So
don't they just have them anointed?
Yeah.
Do we know where Garcia stands on guns?
No, I can't vote for or against, so it just hasn't been on my radar.
Does he go? Is it Choi
Chewy.
or Chewy?
Yeah, Chewy. Chewy is a Hispanic nickname for Jesus.
Jesus. Anyway.
No, Jesus. Seriously.
Okay.
Let's see. I just don't find anything about him about guns.
Yeah.
Owning a gun in D.C. is not like owning a gun in Frisco, Texas, or Gilbert, Arizona, 2 of the safest cities in America. No, we're not talking about the District of Columbia, a city that ranks with Baltimore and Detroit for violent crime. We're 2 months into 2015, and already there have been 13 homicides and 23 instances of sexual abuse reported in D.C. There were 6 instances of sexual abuse and 9 armed robberies with a gun reported this week alone. Assaults with a gun have increased by 31% compared to this time last year. In total, there were 378 crimes reported this week, including 61 violent crimes. The police chief says that firearms in the hands of honest citizens are the problem. She's wrong. She has a bigoted prejudice against the right of self-defense. An armed citizen is the solution. You are hundreds of times more likely to be a victim of violent crime in D.C. than to be victimized by a concealed carry holder.
With this one, I want to mention, and it was mentioned on the show that the previous show that Emily Miller finally got her carry permit. I believe, if I'm right, wasn't she like number 70 in the city?
16, 15
No,
or
no.
16.
Yeah, 70
15 or
applications.
She was the
And she didn't get her
15th
permit.
person.
She got the right to.
Oh,
take
that's
the
right.
class.
The right to apply to take the class to the
Yes.
Yeah.
So there are effectively there still are maybe a few concealed carry holders in DC. So yeah,
Right now there are none.
Yeah.
right.
None. Zero. But Kathy Lanier keeps saying, oh, we have to keep guns out of DC. Why? Because the Boy Scouts, no, the Eagle Scouts, who finally are allowed to get a firearm and carry it for the protection of themselves and their families in public, are going to do what? You know, start trying to take over the hood? Kathy Lanier is full of baloney.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know you guys covered it on the last show, but I was a little disappointed. She didn't say. She said she didn't know if she was going to carry all the time, and I get this.
No, she just said she was going to keep it private.
Well,
Yeah.
I know, but she had said something prior to that before she realized what she had said, and I just there's no safe location, and yes, definitely keep it private. Concealed is concealed. Nobody needs to know. But
I think she covers the police beat. I think she knows that DC is an unsafe city.
Yeah. Well, I hope being one of the handful, she's not unduly challenged when she is out on and about on the street. So.
Yeah.
From across the pond, courtesy of the Telegraph, comes an example of the worldwide desire for individual freedom. In a major speech, I hope I don't get this name too wrong. If I do, somebody please correct me. In a major speech, Nigel Farage, leader of the UK Independence Party, stated that the United Kingdom's 1997 ban on handguns was a knee-jerk reaction and should be lifted. UK citizens had lost their rights in the wake of the previous year's Dunblane school shooting. Mr. Farage described the ban on guns as ludicrous. He said it was UK IP policy to create a proper handgun licensing policy allowing people who kept handguns responsibly locked up and were willing to get an official license to be allowed them. Experts said his comments were stupid and would only encourage an American-style idea that you and your home are only safe if you're armed. Well, yeah.
We reported on Wednesday that, what was it? Not The Economist. John, do you remember it was the Adam Smith Institute. Looked at the last
Adam Smith
800 years of data and said, look at this. This is when people were armed and crime went down, and now we've disarmed them and crime's gone back up.
Yep.
We
Starting
might.
in 1920.
Yeah, look at that. It's like data. Out of London, no less.
And UKIP, or the United Kingdom Independence Party, is really pushing the conservatives, and there are a lot of conservatives leaving the Conservative Party for the UK Independence Party, and they could end up forming the next government. So this is not just some far loony right guy. This is some guy who could end up being prime minister.
Well, what bothers me about this is his idea of far right is, I'll let you keep them at home locked in a safe. Hello?
Yeah. It'd be the equivalent of our far left politicians.
Yes. Much too close.
Yes.
NRA past President Marion Hammer wrote a rebuttal to a local editorial. The Florida Sun Sentinel criticized concealed carry on campus. Hammer said the only thing to fear was the parade of college and university professors attempting to lobby the legislative committee without facts, without reason, and without decorum. Quoting Hammer, for a college professor to stand in the back of the room and scream at the committee chairman was not only inappropriate behavior, it was a chilling realization that those who refuse to engage in civil discourse are teaching impressionable students. End quote. Criticizing the committee chairman, Greg Evers, for showing a map detailing the dozens of registered sex offenders who live in close proximity to the Florida State University campus, shows yet another denial of reality. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement supplies those facts to help students and parents be aware of the dangers around campuses. So-called unified opposition from state universities doesn't make their position right. It merely reveals their willingness to march in collective unison, even when they're denying reality.
You know, it's interesting. Marion Hammer is actually a Democrat. Obviously a very conservative Democrat, but she gets things done in the state of Florida.
I don't think she was a legislator, but she's a heck of a lobbyist.
She runs the United Sportsmen of Florida.
That's right. That's right.
Which is the NRA affiliate. She gets stuff done.
All right, well, that does do it for our news segment. We've got interviews coming up here in just a minute. We've got Grant Cunningham and we've got Alex Kincaid, and we will get to those interviews right after this.
Thank you, Michael.
I hope the dogs weren't too loud. They were demanding to go outside. So
I never even heard them.
Okay.
Can I get you a funnel and a tube for your Mountain Dew?
It's easier if you just hook up an IV bag.
I actually had a Mountain Dew yesterday, my first one in a long while.
I came prepared today. I've got two liters of Mountain Dew.
Do you really want to include Ken's email to the show?
I think it was since we didn't get a gun quote in, so and I do want to kind of.
Oh, by the way, can you guys see the gun quotes? I gotta save them. I gotta share them with Dan, don't I?
Yeah, I don't know if he. But
Sorry,
yeah, and if you're watching live, Dan, bang up job on the show notes.
Would that be Charlie Foxtrot?
That
Yes.
would be. That would be. Okay.
Share these with.
I put all the links for Alex at the bottom of your interview notes, Rob.
Thank you.
If you want to make any adjustments or whatever.
Okay.
We were talking, so obviously I just figured it'd be easier if I had it knocked it out.
You did a great job. Thank you.
And God, that was a great interview too. I was.
Yeah, she interviewed GOA,
Larry Pratt.
Larry Pratt.
Yeah.
And in that she said, "Wait a minute, there's some Idaho's not quite the gun-friendly state its reputation would indicate." And Charlie Foxtrot, I just shared the gun quotes with you. My mistake.
Okay. Are we ready to kick off into DGUs?
DGUs.
Gary, you want to bring us in?
That's what I live for.
Okay. All right. And wow, that disappeared.
Yeah, that's because it goes at the end.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Far be it for me to know which end it goes in.
All right, the rating's gone to heck now.
Yeah.
That's why we can't have nice things. Go ahead.
We haven't had any bloopers for a while. We should.
That belongs in there. Go,
I'll
come
get
on.
on that right away.
Come on, Gary.
All right.
I had a blooper on Friday. I enjoyed it very much.
To use a fun? No. Why did I go down that road?
That's right.
Oh.
Stay out of the rabbit holes, guys.
Exactly. Come on, Gary. Paul, can we record yet?
All right. Rolling now.
Welcome back to the Polite Society podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. This is our DGU segment. Susan, what do we got?
In a quiet southwest Albuquerque neighborhood, a homeowner was forced to defend his life Thursday morning. Awakened by a noise, the resident investigated and was confronted in the kitchen by the knife-wielding intruder. The intruder advanced, telling the homeowner that he was going to kill him. The owner shot, and the 28-year-old criminal, with a history of breaking and entering, died at the hospital. Detectives found the back door had been forced open. Police do not expect charges will be filed against the homeowner. Also in Albuquerque, a retired Marine was the victim of a home invasion, gunshot, and vehicle theft. The unarmed Marine was unable to resist the 5'5" intruder who shot him in the leg and caused him to beg for his life. Criminal escaped in the Marine's truck. He's also suspected in another home invasion where a woman was tied up. Criminal remains at large.
What a difference a firearm makes.
Amen.
Exactly.
Amen. Far be it from me to, Marines, by and large, are extremely tough individuals, and looks like a straight civilian with a handgun did a better job of defending the home than a former Marine without one.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, this is one of those situations that we talked about where you are going to have your firearm out of the holster and not be shooting, be prepared to shoot.
At the right.
We talked about that earlier.
This was from Clint Smith. I knew there was a quote that was coming to mind. He says, "An armed man will kill an unarmed man with monotonous regularity." That's why you want to be the guy with the gun.
Amen.
A 71-year-old retiree, known as a quiet, laid-back, nice guy, found himself in a fight for his life this afternoon after a man less than half his age kicked down his front door. Fortunately, the homeowner was armed. The resident called 911 and reported, "Some guy broke into my house, and I shot him." Police found the assailant's remains on the home porch. The intruder was a drug-addicted felon who had recently been released from prison after being convicted of burglary. Despite the preponderance of evidence, police say this case will be reviewed by the grand jury.
Well, let's hope things turn out right for the homeowner. I'm pretty sure we will. It will, but
once again, and everybody who hasn't should be in a Mag 40 class. Calling up 911 and saying some guy broke into my home and I shot him, and the police show up and he's on your porch, not in your home, is just one little thing that will trigger off that investigation that you don't want.
Yeah.
No, be careful what you say. Know what you say. Be prepared. If you're gonna have a firearm for self-defense, be prepared for the aftermath. That's the main focus. At least that's what the most that I got out of the Mag 40, and just there's so many finite details that can trip you up. Know what you're doing.
Amen. Amen.
Absolutely.
We covered this on Wednesday, but we do have more information tonight. 2 men kicked in the door of a Catawba County, North Carolina home. One is dead, and we can now report the other one is in jail. Late Monday night, a homeowner was awakened by a noise from the basement. He called 911 and then fortunately grabbed a shotgun. Fortunately, as he had to use the long gun in defense of his life when an intruder came toward him. The violent criminal was shot once in the chest, and his accomplice ran off. The wounded robber, a felon on parole, died on the way to the hospital. His compatriot sped off and was later arrested at his home Thursday morning. The father of the homeowner said his son had no choice. He related that his son was tore up by the incident. The sheriff of Catawba County was supportive, saying that, quote, "You do have a right to protect your property when somebody breaks in the house on you. You don't know if these people are coming in to steal your property or coming in to do harm to you and your family," end quote. The homeowner is not expected to face charges. The accomplice will likely be charged with murder.
Under North Carolina's castle doctrine, the presumption is if somebody breaks into your house that you are automatically you are automatically in a deadly situation and in fear of your life. Moreover, the relatives of the dead intruder cannot sue this homeowner in Catawba County.
I think that's great. I want to go back. I do not know who originally posted it, but I was perusing Facebook, and somebody posted this 15-year-old is going to be facing life in prison even though he didn't shoot anybody. Well, what wasn't said on the headline was that he was involved in a home invasion and attacked the family, and the homeowner killed the other accomplice. And so, since he was involved in a felony, he was charged with, convicted, and will be serving a murder sentence. I think that's a fantastic law. I really do. As long as, because you're involved in a deadly situation, as long as when these people are convicted, they get and have to serve that sentence, and don't get a pansy judge who, just because, oh well, this person wasn't the actual one shooting, only give them a 18-month sentence and they're out in 9.
A burglary suspect was shot and killed by a homeowner, saying he was seeking to protect his family. The North Lauderdale man encountered a burglar in his backyard early Friday morning. The criminal was allegedly attempting to break into the owner's home, where his wife, her son, and granddaughter lived. The occupants of the home were unhurt. According to police, the suspect allegedly broke into the fenced-in backyard, burglarized a shed, and then attempted to break into the home. Awakened by the noise, the homeowner armed himself and went into the backyard to investigate. He found the burglar and fired, wounding him. The burglar later died at the hospital. In a late development, the police investigation has been reopened and the homeowner and the son re-questioned. At this time, the status of the investigation is not known.
In Florida, in Texas, this wouldn't be an issue because you're allowed to use deadly force to protect property. Mm-hmm. But in Florida, that's another story.
That's the way the law is written. It's actually, in a very, very long time, has not been interpreted that way, has not been used that way. I know it was written, it was a cattle situation a long, long time ago. That case has not come up in many years. I can't remember the length of time, but significant. So I hear what you're saying. It's just not, let's not say that's going to.
No, I understand. What I'm trying to say is, in Florida, it does not sound like. It sounds like this guy was shooting at somebody just because he was getting robbed, and that's. I wouldn't say that's cool in any state. Although, like I said, Texas does have the laws in the books that could protect you. Florida most definitely does not.
We don't know a bunch of key information about this incident. It was described as early morning. Was it dark? Did the suspect who went and broke into the shed use tools in the shed to break into the house? Was he carrying those tools? Was he advancing on the homeowner? Or was he backing away and retreating? Had he turned his back? All of those are critical pieces of information.
Well, yeah, I try and generalize when I comment on these because we really don't know all the facts. That's something that really has to go in front of a jury and be spoken about everything, all the forensic evidence. We don't know any of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, absolutely, we don't know all the facts.
Well, and I would like to point out that we get these through media links. And I wish we had a lot more information. Unfortunately, in most cases, we don't. We get basically what's reported in the media, and so we try to share what we can and comment where it's appropriate. But we can't be perfect. So I do want to remind everybody we do post links to each of our news and defensive gun use articles at PoliteSocietyPodcast.com. Please take a minute to share them with a friend. And again, I want to remind you as well that we do segment the show on the website now. So if you only want to check out the DGUs or you only want to share DGUs or specific news segments with friends, you can do that as well. So we're going to go ahead and step aside here. We've got email and other things to come up when we come back, and we'll get to that email right after this. Okay, home stretch.
Are we going to sing?
This one I gotta get up.
Okay. All right, just checking Q&A. Yeah, we haven't had Q&A in a long time.
What are you talking about? On
the
your
Q&A
website?
app. What's that?
On the website?
No, on the Q&A app in Google Plus, where they can hit the button and throw a question right into the.
Somebody actually posted something from YouTube and then deleted it.
No.
So I don't know. I saw it up there. I was going to mention it, and I tried to read it, while I was doing everything else, and now it's gone. I don't know if it's still on the YouTube site.
Just a minute. It'll be in my email. Just a second here.
Oh, did anybody else get an invitation to John Lott's dinner at NRA?
I didn't.
You mentioned it to me. I don't think I have.
Okay.
But I might go anyway.
Yeah, I sent you the link. I'm not going to go to the dinner, but I will go to the dessert.
Yeah.
Mr. Fats has an interesting comment. So if they pass National Reciprocity Act, does that mean the feds and the other states will know you have a CHL? If that's the case, I do not like that. Well, no more than they know. I would say no more than they know whether you have a driver's license or not. And I know that just irks Gary when I say that. But right now, if a policeman pulls you over, he's got no damn clue if you got a driver's license or not. That's why they say, we need to see your driver's license and proof of insurance. Driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance. They don't know whether you have any of the three. That's why they ask. So I would say probably no. They will not know until you tell them something. Simon says train says, and that's I believe that's Tony, says nationwide reciprocity is important. If a legal concealed firearms holder drives into New Jersey with a loaded pistol, they are breaking the law, even if you are driving through the state with no. And then I got nothing. That ends the email. So I don't have the.
Yeah, I think it would have to be locked up in someplace that's inaccessible to the driver.
Well, if this concealed carry even if concealed carry reciprocity goes through, I could then concealed carry in New Jersey. However, I would have to follow what all concealed carry holders that I think few hundred that do actually have permits in New Jersey, I would have to follow the same laws they do, which means I could not have hollow point ammunition in my gun. I would have to have I think it's either 10 or 15 round magazine. I could not have anything larger than their magazine capacity. I would have to follow their laws.
Time to go to a 1911 in that case.
Yeah. Wait a minute. You're just saying you would get a 1911 if you were restricted on capacity?
Because generally they're really for a 1911 that's not a double stack. They're 8 rounds.
Yeah, 8 plus 1.
Yeah, but instead of shooting 9mm, you'd have 45 caliber ball.
Yeah. Yeah, and believe me, you'd better be aware of your target and what's beyond it and what's beyond that and what's beyond that and what's beyond that.
It's only 13 layers of drywall, dude. I looked it up. I got curious.
Oh, and Rob, you're right. Actually, Richard Hudson does have a concealed carry bill. His has 100+ co-sponsors, whereas Stutzman only has 20.
Yeah.
I don't get it. And there's like 2 or 3 other reciprocity bills out there.
Yeah. The good news is GOA will sound the alarm, I think, to tell us who to support.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the email segment. Are we ready?
Yep.
You still okay? Susan's kind of up and down with a sore back, so I'm to. We're gonna let her pass on reading the one email we got. I'll take it.
Okay.
And I'll bring us in. Coming back in 5. Hey, and welcome back. This is our listener email and show close segment of the Polite Society podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. We just have one email this time. Ken in Arizona is the one that emailed it. He says, with Star Trek in our thoughts this week, this quote is from Captain Picard of Star Trek The Next Generation. This particular quote comes from the Schizoid Man. Quote, no being is so important that he can usurp the rights of another. I will add, especially when those rights are enumerated in the Constitution, Ken writes. Thanks for sending that in, Ken. And yeah, I do want to mention real quickly that all you know that I am a Star Trek fan. I started watching Star Trek when I was knee-high to a grasshopper, and I was watching reruns of the original series on the 3 channels that we got where I grew up, and watched it every day after I got home from school. And I'm sure I'm not alone. The one person I idolized the most out of that series was Spock, even more than Kirk, because I really didn't want to kiss green chicks. But anyway,
I don't think.
No, I gotta admit, I've never kissed anybody with
right
skin.
then.
But no, Spock was it was to me was the coolest of everybody there, and I wanted to be Spock. And of course, Leonard Nimoy did pass this weekend, and I don't know if anybody connected with that family listens, but just in case, you have our deepest condolences. And Leonard Nimoy was a fantastic person, an amazing actor, awesome photographer, good director, just all around. Yeah, he was a singer. Susan says yes, absolutely. So we lost a great one this week. Moving off from that, then, Rob, do you have any new posts from Slowpacks you want to talk about, man?
I have an article on concealed carry on campus. The point being that a gun-free campus disarms, well, Paul, someone like you, the delivery driver, as effectively as the drunk freshman. The post is up at AmmoLand and my blog. John, do you want to mention anything off of your blog?
Well, it's funny you should mention concealed carry on campus. I did a post on Friday about the hypocrisy of the head demanding mommy, Shannon Watts. She is on a campaign against campus carry. Thanks to what her own kids share on social media, I found out that Mrs. Watts' older daughter attends a university that has allowed concealed carry for a number of years with no problems. Now, I'm not going to give her daughter's name, nor the school, as I don't believe the sins of the parents should be visited upon the children. That said, Shannon Watts is the consummate hypocrite.
Yeah, and just her argument that, well, what about your drunk kids? Well, isn't that painting all college students as drunks? I mean, when I was college age, did I drink? You betcha I did. But was I drunk all the time? No, not even close.
Well, okay, Paul, you had access to a car on campus, right? If you needed to move something, even if it wasn't your car on campus, you could get access to a set of keys?
Oh, certainly.
Okay, so we trust students to drive on campus. We trust them to have access to vehicles even if they don't own one. And yet we're denying them a tool of self-defense. So they're responsible enough to have a, many hundred horsepower, thousands of pound vehicle. I think it's simply a matter of bigotry. So somehow, even though you were drinking, you managed not to crash too many cars on campus and kill people.
Well, I'm going to actually add in something else. I remember when I was in college, back in 1977, we had actually a spate of arsons on campus. One of the women's dorm had to be evacuated and was not livable for a number of months due to arson. We had to set up night patrols or night watch in every dorm to make sure that there was nobody coming in and doing arson.
Crazy.
I had a pistol at home. I was really tempted to bring it, except I knew I would be expelled.
Before we get too far away from this, I'm just curious, John. You said because she posted something on social media. Did she post something on social media about firearms or just the college that she went to? That she's going to?
The college she went to.
Okay, I was just curious as if she was a total rebel and talking about firearms.
Oh no! There's also other posts like
how she was carrying on campus. No.
No. She just attends a school where there is legal concealed carry on campus.
Yeah, okay.
And she's real proud of her mom, who started demanding mommies from her kitchen table, etc.
Yeah, before she got $1 million from a guy in New York.
Yeah.
How awesome would it be to have Shannon Watts' daughter come to our side and be open carrying an AR? All right.
Well, not in Tarrant. Please, not from Tarrant County. Don't call Tarrant County. No one I know. Don't do that.
Yeah. Before I go, we do want. I want to mention something, and this may or may not become a regular part of the show. I don't know, but this is not gun related at all. I want to talk a little bit about net neutrality. Apparently it's coming from the news this week. I have a couple of points I want to bring up. Number one, I want to issue a challenge to our listeners. Besides the actual defense of our borders, and even that in about the last 20 years can be questioned, I would like you to name one thing the federal government has become involved in that hasn't become totally screwed up. The government cannot effectively manage anything. And now they want to add into the things they manage, and they control the internet. Second point, I will fight tooth and nail should it ever come to the point where they want to regulate the internet so much that, like they tried to do with talk radio, they demand equal time to us bloggers and podcasters. You think that would never happen? Think of this, though. Compared to 20 years ago, how much information do you get from blogs and podcasts versus the mainstream media? Mainstream media, I'm talking about newspapers, television, radio, either through the regular channels or by going to their websites and checking out the online version of their stuff. We here in the new media are becoming extremely influential. perhaps not the Polite Society podcast itself yet, but all of us as a whole are making a huge contribution to the attitudes and the opinions of Americans. And I don't think the government can resist trying to get in and get control of us. And net neutrality to me is just the first step in the beginning of controlling the internet and controlling what goes over the internet. People may call me paranoid, but that's where I see this starting. And I wrote a separate email to each of my Congress critters and my Congress critter and senators. I wrote a separate email asking them to do something about net neutrality. Now, this net neutrality, this is a classic pen and phone thing from Obama. This is done by a non-elected committee people and inside the FCC, and was not. Or I may be misspeaking on that one, but I know the people that enacted this were not elected, and was two Democrats and a Republican. They're the big pictures of them all holding hands like they're singing Kumbaya or something. It just, the whole thing has got me inflamed and has got me on edge.
No, these are the big internet providers trying to get legislation favorable to them, and when the elephants dance, the grass suffers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Initially, it's companies. What initially this is about, and what everybody, it's companies like Netflix say not wanting to have to pay one internet provider more than another internet provider because of this and that and the other. And I got into computers initially when I was in high school back in the 1980s. In the 1990s, when I lived in San Diego, I built computers, desktop computers, and sold them. I bought individual parts and custom built computers for what people wanted to use them for. That was back when a 1 gigabyte hard drive was unheard. Matter of fact, a 500 megabyte hard drive was so huge you would never fill it ever. The 33.6 dial-up modem was blazing fast. 56K, that was a dream. Anyway, back then, internet was expensive, and what is paid, and just like everything technology related, it's gone down over time. What we pay for internet now compared to what we get is infinitesimal. I had a 56K dial-up modem, and the most recent, what's now Firefox, back then was oh goodness, what was the name of the browser? Netscape. Yep. The most recent Netscape Navigator came out. It was a 12 megabyte download, and it took me on dial-up 11 and a half hours to download it. I can download on my phone a 12 megabyte file in about a second. That's how much progress we've made without government intervention. With government getting involved, I see nothing happening but the prices going the other way. And honestly, in just the pricing, it could price podcasters right out of the business.
Well, you obviously follow this way closer than I do, Paul. It sounded like to me that one company was blackmailing another company for bandwidth speeds. Isn't that a problem right there?
No, simply because the company we're talking about is the one that made the biggest noise is Netflix.
Right.
Nationwide, Netflix is 34% of the bandwidth usage. 30% of all information that goes over the internet is Netflix viewing.
Okay.
Now, if
the other 60% is porn, so I don't understand why. how is it that we could a company who has a virtual monopoly can charge more to provide service to one company or individual than another?
But that's just it. They don't.
Right now, they were trying to, right?
As I sit here right now, there is no monopoly yet. The government just got involved. Wait 10 minutes. But as we sit right now, I have internet through my cable company that we're recording the show on right now. I could, with a couple of adjustments, go through AT&T wireless right now, and we could do the show over my cell phone. I could call and make there are two other internet providers that serve my local area through wireless internet, and I've done the show with one of them previously before we went to cable internet. That's just it. There isn't if Netflix doesn't like what they're being charged by X internet provider, they can go to another one. There's a lot of different mediums they can go, and yet now the government is coming in and saying, well, because we think we ought to, we're going to go ahead and say what you have to do, Mr. Private Businessman. And every time that happens, things get screwed up. Again, totally off base here, but do you realize how, because of FCC, and this is FCC involvement, how much of your cell phone bill is currently taxes?
Yeah.
About 20% of your cell phone bill, whatever you pay, most people it's about $100 for one line. About 20% of that is taxes.
Right. And
it goes up all the time, and people, because it's part of their cell phone bill, they just don't notice it. Same as, again, I'm going way off topic here, but payroll taxes. You pay 34%. The average person pays 34% between income taxes, Social Security, all that. 34% of what you make, you never ever see. But because you never ever see it, nobody bitches about it. If you had to actually write that check, and as a former owner operator, when I did own my own truck, I had to write that check every quarter. Man, that opens your eyes.
Didn't that one sting?
I can remember those days back when we were statutory, not common law employees of the company I work for. Oh yeah, you do well that quarter, and you're writing one hell of a big check.
Yeah, I'm a Dave Ramsey fan, and I kind of follow his principle. I would love to have one major, huge tax problem because that means I made a hell of a lot of money. But still, I mean, it really brings to life how much they take when you actually have to write the check when it isn't taken out conveniently by your employer. And oh, by the way, that Social Security, that's only about half of what's paid. Your employer pays the other half, but were that not around, guess what? That money would be yours anyway. So you can think of this. If you look at your gross paycheck, it could be 15% higher. And you actually get that money if the federal government stayed the hell out of the way. So I think that does wrap up another episode of the Polite Society podcast. I'm sorry for going way afield there, but I think, at least on my end, I've got a lot of things I'd like to talk about that may become a semi-regular part of the show. I really want to thank Grant Cunningham and Alex Kincaid for coming on the show today. And, okay, everybody, Gary, I'm guessing you're going to be back next weekend and not before, right?
Correct.
Okay. Rob and John, are you guys going to be here for the midweek show?
I will be.
I will. And hopefully we'll get Rachel again with us.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I will be back next weekend. I will not be here on the Wednesday show. And until we are back next time, everybody,
stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
Damn few are as smart as we are. Okay, before we take off and shut down the podcast as far as the YouTube viewers go, again, I want to thank Charlie Foxtrot. Charlie, if you are watching, one hell of a good job on the show notes this week, man. I want to mention our advertisers: ABN Army Surplus, Concealment Solutions, Crusader Weaponry, New Jersey Second Amendment Society, and of course the Firearms Safety Institute and the Firearms Policy Coalition. We are going to go ahead and shut down here. Remember, everybody, join us next week, 3:30 p.m. Central Time. That one, we're going to have John Hodaway, maybe Chaz Murray on with us. They'll be interviewed, and possibly more guests that we just haven't got booked yet. So thanks again for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time.